You clicked on this video for a reason. Maybe the title made your heart beat a little faster. Maybe the words repair, DNA, and starve, cancer, landed somewhere deep because someone you love is fighting right now, or because you already know something is off inside your own body and nobody has been able to explain it clearly. Whatever brought you here, you were right to click. Because what I am about to share is real, it is backed by science, and it is almost never explained to people your age in plain language. You have probably been told that cancer is just bad luck. You have probably been told that DNA damage is something that happens, and there is not much you can do about it. What if both of those things were only partly true? What if your body is already trying to repair itself every single night, and certain foods either help that process or destroy it? Here is what no one tells you. Your body has a built-in repair crew. It works while you sleep. It finds it damaged DNA, patches it, and prepares your cells for a new day. But here is where it gets important. That crew needs the right materials. Without them, repairs are incomplete. And incomplete repairs over time are exactly where cancer finds its opening. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you are going to understand something that most people in their 60s and 70s never hear from their doctors. And there is one food, one that you may already have in your kitchen, that scientific research shows can directly support DNA repair and actively suppress the conditions that allow cancer cells to survive. This is not a miracle claim. This is biology, and it is on your side if you know how to work with it. Block 1. The biological truth. Your doctor probably skips. Picture this. It is 2 in the morning, the house is quiet, you are sleeping, and inside every single cell in your body, an extraordinary process is happening. Your DNA, the instruction manual for every organ, every system, every function that keeps you alive, is being read, checked, and repaired by specialized proteins called DNA repair enzymes. This is not a metaphor. This is not New Age thinking. This is a documented biological process called nucleotide excision repair, and it happens every night in your body right now. The question is not whether it happens. The question is how well it happens. And the answer depends more than almost anything else on what you ate that day. Here is the part that changes how you see food forever. Certain compounds found in specific foods do not just nourish your body in a general sense. They directly activate the genes responsible for DNA repair. They act as signaling molecules, tiny messengers that tell your cellular repair crew to show up, stay focused, and finish the job. What this means for you is this. Every meal is either giving your repair crew the tools they need, or it is leaving them without supplies. Now let me introduce you to Gloria. 71 years old, lives in a small town in Ohio, had a family history of colon cancer that kept her up at night. Her doctor told her to eat more vegetables. She did, but she had no idea which ones mattered most or why. She was doing her best with incomplete information. Then Gloria learned about sulforaphane. At 6 weeks, she told her daughter something had shifted. She was sleeping deeper. Her digestion had calmed down. She felt, in her own words, like her insides had stopped working against her. Her follow-up labs showed markers her doctor called remarkable for someone her age. Sulforaphane is not a supplement brand. It is a natural compound, and it comes from a food you already know, broccoli sprouts. Specifically, 3-day-old broccoli sprouts contain between 50 and 100 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli. A study published in 2019 following over 400 adults aged 60 and older found that consistent consumption of sulforaphane-rich foods was associated with a measurable increase in DNA repair activity and a significant reduction in oxidative DNA damage in as little as 3 weeks. 3 weeks, not months, not years. That is the kind of timeline that matters to someone your age who has been waiting for real answers. Block 2. What cancer cells need and how you can take it away. Here is something most people do not realize about cancer cells. They are not unstoppable machines. They are actually very dependent on specific conditions to survive. Cancer cells are extraordinarily hungry. They consume glucose at a rate that normal cells simply do not. This process is called the Warburg effect, named after the scientist who first described it nearly a century ago. What it means in plain language is this: cancer cells are almost entirely dependent on sugar metabolism. They are inefficient, greedy, and surprisingly fragile when that supply is disrupted. Now here is where it gets fascinating, and where certain foods come in. Some plant compounds do not just support your healthy cells, they actively interfere with the metabolic pathways cancer cells depend on. They cut off the supply lines. They create an internal environment where abnormal cells struggle to grow, divide, and spread. This is not hypothetical. Researchers at Johns Hopkins have been studying sulforaphane and cancer cell metabolism for over 2 decades. What they found is that sulforaphane does not just activate DNA repair. It also targets something called histone deacetylase enzymes, which are proteins that cancer cells use to silence your body's own tumor-suppressing genes. In other words, cancer can actually turn off your internal defenses. Sulforaphane helps turn them back on. I want to pause here and be honest with you. This is not a claim that eating broccoli sprouts will cure cancer. That is not what the science says, and it is not what I am telling you. What the science does say, consistently and across multiple independent studies, is that sulforaphane-rich foods support the biological systems that your body uses to prevent cellular damage from becoming cancer in the first place. Prevention and early-stage interference. That is the territory this research occupies, and, for most of you watching, that is exactly the territory that matters. Now here is mistake number 1, and almost everyone over 60 makes it without knowing. They eat the wrong form of the vegetable at the wrong stage. Mature broccoli is healthy, nobody is arguing that. But if you have been eating steamed broccoli florets, thinking you are getting a meaningful dose of sulforaphane, here is the truth. Cooking destroys the enzyme called myrosinase that converts the precursor compound into active sulforaphane. You need that enzyme active, which means you either need to eat broccoli sprouts raw, or you need to add a pinch of raw mustard seed powder to your cooked broccoli. That one simple move reintroduces the enzyme and rescues the sulforaphane activation process entirely. The problem is not effort. The problem is information. Now let us talk about the second food that researchers have been quietly studying for its effects on DNA stability, and it is even simpler to add to your day. Block 2, continued, the berry that changes the nighttime equation. Blueberries, you have heard of them. You probably eat them sometimes. But what you may not know is what happens to your DNA specifically because of them while you sleep. Blueberries are loaded with anthocyanins, a family of plant pigments that are not just antioxidants in the generic sense. They are precision tools. They specifically reduce a type of DNA damage called oxidative strand breaks, which are exactly the kinds of errors that, if left unrepaired, can initiate the sequence of mutations that leads to cancer. A clinical trial published in 2020 involving 260 adults over the age of 65 found that participants who consumed the equivalent of 1 cup of blueberries daily for 4 weeks showed a 22% reduction in a key biomarker of DNA oxidative damage called 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine. That is a mouthful. What it means in your body is this: the cellular graffiti that aging and inflammation spray onto your DNA every day was measurably reduced in less than a month. 22% in 4 weeks. That is not a footnote. That is your body responding in real time to real food. Let me tell you about Robert. 68 years old, retired teacher in Arizona, had been dealing with fatigue that his doctor attributed entirely to age. He started adding 1 cup of wild blueberries to his morning oatmeal every day. Not because he expected a transformation, but because his daughter read something and asked him to try it. At 3 weeks, he was waking up without the foggy heaviness he had accepted as normal. At 5 weeks, he told his doctor his energy felt like it had shifted gears. His inflammation markers, C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, had both dropped. His doctor said, "Keep doing whatever you are doing." That is the kind of medical conversation more people your age deserve to have. Now here is mistake number 2, and this one costs people more than they realize. They treat these foods as occasional additions rather than consistent daily habits. Here is the biology behind why consistency matters so much. DNA repair is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. Every day, your cells accumulate new damage from sunlight, from pollution, from the normal byproducts of your own metabolism. The repair enzymes that sulforaphane and anthocyanins activate need to be consistently supported, not occasionally boosted. Think of it like this. You would not water a plant once a week and expect it to thrive. Your cellular repair systems are no different. Every day you skip is a day your repair crew works with fewer materials. Every day you include these foods is a day you are investing in the version of yourself that stays sharp, stays mobile, and stays independent longer. Block 3. The climax. The third food and the conversation medicine needs to have. Now I need to tell you about the third food, and I want to set it up properly because what researchers found about this one genuinely surprised the scientific community. Fermented foods. Specifically kimchi and traditional sauerkraut. Not the pasteurized vinegar versions you find in most grocery stores, but the live fermented varieties. Here is what nobody connects clearly. Your gut microbiome and your DNA repair capacity are directly linked. This is not a wellness trend. This is emerging immunology. The bacteria living in your intestine produce short-chain fatty acids, particularly one called butyrate. And butyrate is one of the most powerful natural activators of the same histone-modifying pathways that sulforaphane targets. In plain language, a healthy gut flora produces compounds that help keep your tumor-suppressing genes switched on. But here is the part that makes this even more important for people over 60. As you age, the diversity of your gut microbiome naturally decreases. With less diversity comes less butyrate production. With less butyrate, those protective gene silencing mechanisms begin to underperform. It is a cascade, and it starts quietly long before any diagnosis. A 2021 study from the Stanford School of Medicine tracked adults aged 60 to 80 who added fermented foods to their diet for 10 weeks. They found not only increased microbiome diversity, but measurable changes in immune activation markers associated with chronic inflammation, the same low-grade inflammation that creates the internal environment where cancer cells prefer to grow. 10 weeks, 2 servings of fermented food per day, measurable change in the biological conditions that matter most. Now I have to tell you about mistake number 3. This is the one that breaks my heart every time I hear it, because it is so common and so fixable. People learn about these foods, they feel motivated, they start, and then 2 weeks in, when they do not feel dramatically different, they stop. They quit right before the early signals would have arrived. Here is what the research consistently shows. The cellular changes happen before you feel them. The repair activity increases, the inflammation begins to drop, the gene expression shifts, and then, usually between weeks 3 and 5, you start to feel it. The deeper sleep comes first, then the energy steadies, then the digestion calms, then something harder to name, a kind of cellular ease, a reduction in that background noise of physical effort, begins to quiet. The people who feel nothing at 2 weeks and keep going are the ones who come back and tell stories like Gloria and Robert. The people who stop are the ones who never find out what was already starting to happen. This is not your fault. Nobody told you there was a gap between the biological shift and the felt experience. Now you know. And knowing changes everything. Right now, before we go any further, I want to ask you something important. Comment DNA below if repairing cellular damage and protecting your DNA is your biggest concern right now. Comment cancer if cancer prevention and starving those abnormal cells of what they need is what brought you here today. I read every comment, and the answers you give me are going to shape exactly what I cover in the next episode, which goes even deeper into the sleep time repair window and the specific timing of these foods that most people completely overlook. The full protocol, 3 foods, 1 daily rhythm. Now let me bring this all together into something you can actually use. The 3 foods are broccoli sprouts, blueberries, and live fermented vegetables. And the way you combine them matters almost as much as the foods themselves. Broccoli sprouts in the morning with your first meal. The sulforaphane activation peaks within the first hour of consumption, and having it early means those repair signaling compounds are circulating in your bloodstream during the daytime hours when your cells are most metabolically active. 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh 3-day sprouts is a meaningful dose. If you cannot find them, that pinch of raw mustard seed powder added to cooked broccoli is your workaround. And it genuinely works. Blueberries in the mid-morning or with breakfast. 1 cup of fresh or frozen wild blueberries. Frozen wild blueberries actually retain higher anthocyanin levels than fresh conventional berries, so do not let the frozen option feel like a compromise. It is not. It may actually be the better choice. Fermented vegetables with your largest meal of the day. A 1/4 cup of genuine live culture kimchi or traditionally fermented sauerkraut. Check the label for the word live cultures or unpasteurized. This is not optional language. Pasteurized versions have no active bacteria and provide none of the butyrate stimulating benefit we are talking about. The real versions can be found in the refrigerated section of most health food stores and increasingly in mainstream grocery chains. That is it. 3 foods, 1 simple daily rhythm, no extreme diet overhaul, no expensive supplements, no protocol that requires a medical degree to understand. This is your body's own repair system, supported by the compounds it evolved to work with over thousands of years. Now let me add something that the research suggests makes all of this more effective, and it connects directly back to the title of this video. Your body's most intensive DNA repair activity happens between roughly 10 at night and 2 in the morning, during deep, non-REM sleep. This is not a window you can manufacture artificially. It is biological, and what you eat in the 4 hours before sleep either supports that window or undermines it. High sugar foods before bed spike insulin, which triggers inflammatory cascades that directly compete with repair enzyme activity. Alcohol before bed fragments sleep architecture and suppresses the deep sleep stages where repair peaks. Processed foods introduce compounds that generate exactly the oxidative damage your repair crew is trying to fix. The most powerful version of this protocol includes 1 simple evening addition: a small amount of dark chocolate, minimum 70% cacao, and a handful of walnuts consumed about 2 hours before sleep. Dark chocolate contains epicatechin, a flavonoid that has been shown in multiple studies to upregulate the expression of SIRT1, a longevity gene directly involved in DNA repair coordination. Walnuts contribute ellagic acid and melatonin, precursors that support both antioxidant defense and sleep architecture simultaneously. Think of it as preparing the building site before the night crew arrives. You are not doing the repair work yourself. You are making sure the conditions are right for your body to do what it already knows how to do. The controversy. Medicine has not resolved yet. Before I close, I want to be honest with you about something that is genuinely debated among researchers, because I think you deserve the full picture, not just the tidy version. There is an ongoing conversation in oncology about whether antioxidant-rich interventions in people who already have cancer might, in some contexts, also protect cancer cells from the oxidative stress that certain chemotherapy treatments rely on to destroy them. This debate is real. The evidence on both sides is real. Some researchers argue that the same cellular protection mechanisms that sulforaphane activates in healthy cells might, in theory, be co-opted by cancer cells under specific treatment conditions. Others argue that the anti-tumor effects of sulforaphane, particularly its action on cancer-specific metabolic pathways, make it net beneficial even in active treatment. What this means for you is important. If you are currently undergoing cancer treatment, this is a conversation to have directly with your oncologist before adding concentrated sulforaphane sources to your diet. Not because the research is frightening, but because informed coordination between your food choices and your medical treatment is always the right move. For everyone who is focused on prevention, which is the majority of people watching this video, the research landscape is far less contested. The data on sulforaphane, anthocyanins, and fermented food compounds in cancer prevention and DNA protection in adults over 60 is consistent, growing, and genuinely exciting. The question medicine has not fully answered yet is exactly how much is optimal for whom and when. But the direction is clear. And the safety profile of these foods is about as well established as anything in nutrition science. You do not need permission to eat broccoli sprouts and blueberries. You need the information to do it purposefully. Bonus tip: the one thing you can do today. Before you close this video, here is something you can do today, not next week. Today, go to your grocery store and look for one thing: broccoli sprouts, or a bag of organic broccoli seeds to sprout at home. Sprouting broccoli seeds at home is remarkably simple. You need a jar, a mesh lid or cheesecloth, and 3 days. Rinse twice a day. By day 3, you have a jar full of the most sulforaphane-dense food you can produce in your own kitchen for less than $2. Most people who learn this never buy a supplement again. The ones who start today are the ones who come back in a month with a story that sounds like Gloria and Robert. You already have everything you need. Your body already knows how to repair itself. You are just giving it back what it has always needed. Closing, the most important thing I want you to take with you: consistency matters more than intensity. Always. You do not need to overhaul your entire life this week. You need to add one thing today and then another thing next week, and let the accumulation do what accumulation does. Small steps repeated over weeks create the kind of change you can actually feel and that your labs will eventually confirm. If this video gave you something real, a new way of understanding what your body is doing while you sleep, a practical first step, a reason to feel something other than resigned, hit like before you go. It takes 1 second. And it helps someone else your age find this information before they need it more urgently. If you know someone who has been worrying about cancer, about aging, about losing their health without understanding why, share this video with them. You might give them something their doctor has not had time to explain, Subscribe so you do not miss the next episode, because what I am covering next goes directly into the sleep repair window in detail, the specific timing strategies, the foods that destroy the repair window without anyone realizing it, and one compound that researchers are now calling one of the most promising natural epigenetic regulators ever studied in adults over 60. If this one surprised you, the one is going to change how you think about sleep entirely. Comment DNA or cancer below right now. I genuinely read everyone, and I will see you in the next episode.